I'm Zach McKee, and I decided to look at the reliability of eyewitness testimony. So the focus of my study was basically based on Loftus's eyewitness and memory studies, particularly pertaining to the unreliability of eyewitness testimony as well as how malleable memory is. We'll look at the changes further on into the presentation. So forensic psychology dates back all the way to the late 1890s when James McKee and Cattell created the first study, or one of the first at the time, by asking questions to his students about general knowledge, and then of that general knowledge he asked to rate their confidence in them, and what he found is that their confidence does not correlate with the correct answer, and so Cattell suggested that for eyewitnesses, if just because they give testimony does not mean that it's accurate based on their confidence. Some more notable influence on forensic psychology, William Stern. He also created a study for his students by staging a fake argument that escalated pretty rapidly, where the fact that a gun was pulled, more or less just to see how students would react. So after the two students were removed from the class, Stern had the rest of the students create reports on what happened, just to see what their recall was and what they picked up from it. And what Stern found was, as the tension or the argument escalated, there was more errors in the recall. And so Stern suggests that eyewitness testimony, if it's a very stressful or emotional situation, their testimony may be more inaccurate since they are under that pressure. Then a few more notable people from history for forensic psychology. Hugo Munsterberg. He was wrote On the Witness Stand in 1908, previously based on being an expert witness in a trial. And in his book, he suggests that witness testimony is unreliable based on the fact that it can be manipulated, as well as the fact that it leads to suggestibility. Also in the book, he mentions how psychology should be implemented into the criminal justice system, but people kind of disallow this, they don't think it's real or should happen. And then Albert von Schneck-Notzig was an actual psychologist and an expert witness in a murder case. He basically said to the jury and the other court officials that they need to take whatever witness and testimony with a grain of salt, for the fact that there was a lot of news coverage and publicity over this study, or over this court case, and so whatever the testimony may be, they may be inaccurate based on the coverage. And so Loftus, she really looked at reconstructive memory for her studies and how well we can reconstruct our memories, but prior studies to this was Bartlett in 1932, where he conducted a study based on Chinese whispers, which is a game where you repeat a story, and he told a story of Native American ghosts to his students, and he had them recall the story an hour, a day, and even a couple weeks, and up to a year or so after, and he found that each time they recalled, there was a shorter recall of the story, as well as changing key and unique details to non-significant normal things. And Bartlett hypothesized that this meant their schemas were doing this to help encode and process the information better. But Bartlett's theory was completely ignored, and people did not believe it, since it was a new way to think about memory, since we thought of it at the time as tape recorders. In 1947, Albert and Bozeman also kind of added on to Bartlett's study in a similar manner by having participants look at a black and white photo of two men, one African American, one white. The white man was holding a knife to the black man on a train, and what participants' schemas flipped as recall happened. Their schemas flipped what was actually happening, and so they thought the black man was holding a knife to the white man, which this kind of correlates to Bartlett's study. So why was Loftus' study so groundbreaking? Well, for the first time, research was placed on an actual experimental design with good reliability and validity. it could be accepted for this fact, since Bartlett and other researchers did not really have good structure to their experiments. And Loftus's study also created a new way to look at psychology through criminal justice system and a new theory for memory. So Loftus and Palmer, 1974. This is probably the bigger of the two studies that Loftus created. The first one was she had participants look at a video of a car crash and then later on ask them questions regarding the car crash, and she found that those who had answered questions with leading questions such as how fast were the cars going when they smashed together, they gave higher estimates to the speed or to whatever the question was asking, whereas those in the non-leading question group did not have the same answers. Also from the findings, they had the participants come back a few weeks later to answer questions on details, and they found that the details were more significant for the leading question groups, like saying yes to broken glass or other details. In 1978, Loftus conducts another study on misleading information. She asked questions to participants on an automobile pedestrian accident this time, and she found that the misleading information that was in the questions, such as "Did you see a stop sign?" Later on caused the participants to answer yes or more inaccurately to these misleading questions, just because they thought they perceived it even though it never actually happened. So what we can take away from Loftus's studies is that the language of a question, as well as the information in the question, can restructure and even change the way we respond to it, as well as over time, misleading information can restructure the way we remember or construct the memories. So like after Loftus's studies, there's some reactions, like people were appalled by this. Like they thought either one, these findings are incredible. She had defense attorneys, other legal professionals asking to be an expert witness, where the other side people are harassing her, saying, "Why would you defend the guilty? Say they're innocent people are not truthful." So the changes that this study brought to the field is that there was a difference how we thought of memory, as well as a difference how we thought of psychology. We think of memory now as painting in the sense of it's reconstructive and not like a tape recorder, and how psychology can be put into the criminal justice system, especially the use of psychologists in court cases to help be expert witnesses. And they've also educated jurors on how eyewitness testimony can be unreliable. So in conclusion, eyewitness testimony is not always reliable. There's a new theory for memory function. Misinformation can cause inaccuracies in testimonies, and psychology is now becoming a larger part of criminal justice trials. These are my references. Any questions? Carson.
So, why do you think, like, there's so much support behind why eyewitness testimony is so false? Like, why do you think they still use it in court?
I think the reason is because people believe if someone saw it, it's like an accurate, like it's like considered like a video replay of what actually happened, even though Loftus found misinformation or different ideas or different facts could sway someone to reconstruct different memory, but we find it as like it's being a look at what actually happened since they saw it, so we put a lot of weight onto it, just like DNA is kind of considered like a nail in the coffin for criminal trials, even though it can't be convicted on. Any other questions? Carson?
Go ahead, Carson.
Like, in your research, like, did you find any, like, recent, like, clash? Like, is psychology still pushing this notion that this is falsifiable in court, or is, like, since court's still using it, have they just kind of, like, moved on and, like, here's the information, like, use it if you want to?
I think the biggest thing is, like, they're slowly shifting. Like, there's been more research, not as significant as this, but it's saying, like, it can, eyewitness testimony is unreliable. So, like, if you're going to use it, take it with a grain of salt type thing. Like, this might be accurate, might not be. You just got to be cautious because it might not be what actually happened.
That's all the time for questions we have.